Hey everybody, this is Games Plus James, and today we're going to take a look at what's been going on with my game Scoot Kaboom. It's time for an update, it's time to find out what's been going on, and all the amazing things I've done in the last 6 months. Don't tell anyone that I didn't work on the game for 4 months. So the last update I did on the game was about 6 months ago, in August, the start of August. So obviously lots of things have actually been done since that time. So let's dive in and see some of the cool things that we've managed to add to the game since then. So one of the major things I've added in is back here on the start menu, the game modes. There's now multiple game modes in the game. So obviously there's the main game mode, which is what you play through. And then once you complete the game once, you unlock these other modes. And we could talk about them here, or let's just dive in and see what they look like. So in destruction mode, which this version is, every trap you run into explodes. So you can destroy all these things as you go, blows them all up. You don't ever worry about dying. But the aim of this little mode is to try and destroy all the traps along the way. At the end of the level, if I just zoom over here to the end of the level, once you reach the end, it will let you know how many traps you destroyed out of the game. So going forward, there's going to be characters you unlock for doing different things. So for example, one of the characters will be, hey, destroy all the traps for fun. So if you manage to destroy all the traps, you'll get a special bonus character. Next up is speedrun mode, which it makes sense to show you from the menu here because it'll show off what is actually different about it, which is that instead of having to sit through the cutscene at the start of the game, it just dives you straight into the game, so you don't have to worry about sitting through that little bit. It's basically a way of, hey, if you want to speedrun the game, you don't have to sit through the little intro thing every single time. And also, once you get to the end of the level, it makes things happen a lot quicker. Next up is gold chase mode, which is, look at this gigantic screen full of coins. The whole world is filled with these coins. You gotta try and collect as many as you can to complete the level. So it's just an extra little fun challenge in this little area, and it makes you have to explore around the areas a little bit more as you go. It's pretty fun. I think it looks fun. I think it's quite intimidating looking at it all, but it's actually quite fun to play through. Next up here is Iron Man mode, which is pretty self-explanatory if you're used to Iron Man term in games in general, which is that you only have one life. There's no checkpoints in this version. The challenge is to try and complete the entire dungeon without dying. If you do die, obviously you get sent back to the beginning again. Now, one thing that's interesting about this, or was a bit of the thing that had to be worked around at least, is that normally when you collect these gems up here, that you go to a checkpoint and that will kind of cash in the gem. But obviously if you're in Iron Man mode and there's no checkpoints, that means you have to collect all the gems in one continuous run and get to the end of the level. Now, what that means is, hey, this little guy just following me. It used to be that every coin or every little gem would go to the same point behind Scoot. So now if you manage to collect one, if I do that, there we go. Now you've got 2 gems that will follow along. So you can collect all the gems and you'll end up with this big massive trail of gems following along behind the player as you go, which is kind of fun to look at. But it's also pretty handy because then once you get to the end of the level, they all get cashed in and you win the game. Next up is Rocketeer mode, which gives you super flying powers and you have to run out through the entire level backwards. So rather than having to complete the level the same way again, we run out backwards. The reason you have the flight power is because there's certain areas, for example, this area here with this big laser, which obviously the player can't jump up there. So let me just make myself invincible here. So I can fly up and run around through all these things. If I'm invincible, I can also take these little shortcuts, but that's okay. So it's another little fun wee little adventure. See how fast you can complete the level backwards with the power of flight. And the final mode of the game is kind of inspired by Spelunky, where if you spend too long in a level, a ghost will start to follow you. In this one, we've got a ghost that will start to slowly chase the player, and if you touch against the ghost, you will instantly die. Obviously, you'll return any checkpoints you've hit, or anything like that, but the idea is to avoid that ghost. Now, obviously at the moment, it's just a very simple white little circle, which isn't really great. I'll replace that with some actual art at some point, but for now it's, rather than the haunted ghost, it's the spooky circle of doom. Ugh. So as I mentioned, for completing those modes you will unlock different characters. For now we just have the 3 characters here, but I have the system for unlocking those characters is currently working. It's just not doing anything because we don't have enough characters. We'll add more characters in as we go forward in the game. There's things like placeholder music in the game now, which works as you move between areas. Obviously that music isn't final, so there's no point in even going into the music here or anything like that, but it does work pretty nicely. I also made a system so that when you start the game, when you first get going here, when the level gets revealed, you only see the first area. So every time you complete each of these areas, it'll display the next area for you to explore in. So you still get the idea here that you're trying to go over a big massive area to get down to the bottom. But if I just travel my way down here, as you can see, when you get into each new zone, it'll unlock the next one for you to get to. Well, it'll help if I didn't just die. There we go. You see the next one like that. So it adds a little bit of mystery to the level as well and makes things a little bit more interesting. And then I didn't work on the game for 4 months. So yeah, as can often happen with these things, life got in the way. I got a little bit busy. But then eventually we finally got time to get back to working on the game, and now we've been doing a whole bunch of things. So as of the start of January, I mostly have been working on the background for the areas. Well, I say mostly, I'm pretty much finished all the backgrounds now. As you can see, there's things like the mountains here, and we had a lot of fun developing some shaders to make the background scroll nicely. So if I scroll down to one of these areas, like this frozen area here, we've got a background that parallaxes behind us. It's all using the power of shaders in Unity, which is, turns out, are really fun. Something that I hadn't tried to do before, doing this parallaxing effect, but it works pretty nicely. So for example, in the background there, it's working away, and it's simply just a few simple tiles scrolling away at different speeds in relation to the camera. But I've finally got most of the background art in place now, so the game actually is pretty much the basic core visuals of the game are locked in. There's lots of characters still to make for the unlock system, but visually most of the game is in place now. I also worked on a few extra systems. So for example, now the areas where the gems are in the level are hidden until you go into them. So for example, the one above me here, that's up there, just to make them a little bit of a challenge to find. But of course, if you get past this area and you say get back down to here, if you're playing the game normally, obviously there wouldn't necessarily be a way to get back up to this area here. So if you missed out on a gem, that would make you feel kind of bad about the game. So if I pop over here, I also added this very simple fast travel system to the game. So you can return basically to any of the previous purple checkpoints that you've reached in the level. I didn't want to do all the checkpoints because that would get a little bit too cluttered, but just the purple ones is just enough so that you can travel back to previous areas and try and get any of those gems that you've missed along the way. Again, just to make things a little bit easier on players and make it a little bit more fun to do. There's also been lots of other small little improvements, like for example, these little prompts here at the start of the level to tell you how to move. They also switch between controller and keyboard to support, depending on which one is the last one you pressed, just so you know how to navigate around a little bit easier. What else did I add? Lots of things. For example, if you die now, if I go over here and if I turn off my invincibility here, so if my character dies, bang, that's there. It used to be that if you would go out to the main menu and then continue the game, that your splats would all disappear, but now your splats remain when you load back into the game. So you now have a good record. So if you stop playing the game halfway through, when you come back, you'll still be able to see all the places that you died while playing the game, which is part of the fun of the splat system. You might have noticed also that we can do little backflips now. If you have the double jump activated in the game, the second jump will do a fun little flip from Scoot, which feels, for some reason, I added it in randomly just to see how it would feel, and it really makes it feel a lot more fun. Part of me feels like double jumping should be the default state in the game, but we'll see as we get closer to launch how that goes. There have been lots of level design changes to the whole experience in general, and just the other day I actually went through the whole game and made things flow a bit nicer, a little bit easier. There's some places that were a little bit too hard, so there's more checkpoints now, more things to make it not frustrating hopefully, but still a challenge to play through in the game. And one of the things in the game as well is that once you reach the final area down here, it plays a little cutscene. So let's just run through that quickly, and you should see it's pretty simple at the moment. That the video screen person there is just a placeholder thing right now. We'll see how that changes as we go. But one of the things that I actually worked on in the last week or two again is once you do that, you now have this kind of charged up state. So now you have this flying power. I can fly around, I can spin. So again, if I do the double jump, I do a fun little spin, or I can just fly like a little crazy guy. But also when you're escaping this area, you blow up all the objects on the way and have to get back out of the dungeon and reach the exit to complete the game. But there you go, that's where we are with Skookaboom at the moment. Still more things to get done before the game can be finished, but it's coming along nicely. It's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait to get it into some more players' hands to check it out and see all the fun they can have along the way. So thanks for watching this video. I'll be back soon with more Skookaboom goodness, more tutorials, more fun action, more learning all about Unity. Keep being awesome, keep being cool, and I'll see you all very, very soon.